Good afternoon. This is your 4 p.m. update from the Londoners newsroom. I'm Lucy Bell. The Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt has reopened to foreign nationals and the badly injured. The crossing was shut during the retaliatory strikes on Gaza after the Hamas attack on Israel. The two other border crossings remain shut. Air forces from Jordan dropped urgent medical supplies into Gaza earlier this afternoon. This follows an announcement from the King of Jordan stating his military will help those injured in Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 10,000 people have been killed since the conflict began. This comes after one of the heaviest nights of bombing by the Israeli military on Gaza. In a joint statement from the major UN agencies, they have said enough is enough and have called for a humanitarian ceasefire. 6 people have been charged following a pro-Palestinian march that took place in central London on Saturday. The Met Police have said, while the vast majority of people demonstrated peacefully, there was various breakaway groups whose behaviour was completely unacceptable. British Steel is putting 2,000 jobs at risk by confirming their plans to close down its furnaces in Scunthorpe. 2 electric furnaces, one at Scunthorpe and the other at Teesside, will replace the current blast furnaces. According to the British Steel £1.25 billion plan would make them a clean and green and sustainable business. Due to the company's changing environmental commitments, they are unable to keep the blast furnaces, according to the chief executive. However, the current plans are still subject to the appropriate support from the UK government. The General Secretary of the community has said, workers won't stand back and watch as Britain's steel industry is dismantled in real time. Industrial action has already been threatened by the unions. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has reacted to the multiple allegations of rape by a Conservative MP. He described them as very serious and urges anyone with evidence of criminal acts to go to the police. Former Tory party chairman Sir Jake Berry wrote to the police, making them aware of these claims after he left his post last year. According to Berry, one of the alleged victims was receiving support that was paid for by the party. He told the police the failure of some of the individuals has allowed these offences to continue to take place. However, Sunak told his party that they have a robust and independent complaint procedures. In London, 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested after they smashed glass protecting a painting at the National Gallery. According to the Met Police, the 2 activists used safety hammers to smash the glass. They have been arrested under suspicion of causing the criminal damage. Over 16 million people have missed key household payments, and for 2 million of them, this is the first time. According to the Money and Pension Service, 30% of British adults have fallen behind on at least one payment in 2023. We spoke to Laura Perkins from the London Community Foundation.
London has some of the highest rates of poverty in the UK, and what's happened with the cost of living crisis, both energy and the rising inflation, has meant that everything that we spend money on, whether it's rent, food or energy, has risen, and it's meant that people who were already really struggling and living in poverty have been pushed deeper into poverty, and it's tipped a lot of people into poverty in London. This is particularly true for London because we spend an awful lot on housing, more so than any other place in the country. So when rent increases and things like that, that really hits us hard. So there are certain people within London who are really feeling it harder than others. There's a lot of inequality that's being accentuated by the rising cost of living. So our most vulnerable Londoners are becoming more vulnerable. So generally people in our communities turn to their local community organisation. The demand for their services is absolutely rocketing, and the complexity of the needs of the people has also increased. Community organisations, they're also finding it really difficult with their own costs. So they're trying to accommodate more people, and while their costs are also increasing a lot. And then they're also finding that their donations are dropping off. Cost of living is hitting people who normally donate, so some people are sort of reducing their donation. My main advice would be to look to their local council websites and also charities like Turn to Us. I would really recommend that community organisations.
In sport, the rebel group holding Liverpool Louis Diaz's father hostage has demanded security guarantees before his release. The player called on the kidnappers to free his father at yesterday's match against Luton Town. Luis Manuel Diaz has kidnapped at gunpoint alongside his wife in Colombia on the 28th of October. The National Liberation Army has said the ongoing military and police search for the Liverpool player's father will delay the release and increase the risks. And finally, in local news, Rhythm and Blues is being revived in Richmond. Live concerts are being hosted at the Eel Pie Club in the hopes of preserving the UK's musicality. The club is located at the Cabbage Patch in Twickenham and will be hosting new young talent alongside tribute acts and legends from the 1960s. Your next update will be at 4:15. I'm Lucy Bell.
Good afternoon. This is your 4:15 p.m. update from the Londoners newsroom. I'm Chloe Chenery. The UK government are accused of separating children from their parents in Gaza, as many are trying to leave the conflict zone via the Rafah crossing, with many being left off the Foreign Office safe passage lists. This strongly differs from the policy made during the evacuation of Ukraine, in which any family member of a British citizen would be provided with a visa. Hundreds of British nationals are also remain trapped in Gaza among other foreign nationals. However, those who are named on the list have had a difficult time crossing the border due to disagreements between Palestine and Israeli authorities. A spokesperson from the Foreign Office said, "This continues to be a complex and challenging situation, and we are all using all diplomatic channels to press for the crossing to reopen in coordination with our international partners. Contact is being kept between British nationals and the region to keep people up to date with the most recent information." Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has addressed the allegations that a Tory MP is a serial rapist. During his visit to Bacton Gas Terminal in Norfolk, the Prime Minister said, "These are very serious anonymous allegations." Former Conservative Party Chairman Sir Jake Berry made the police aware of the claims before leaving his post last year. The politician was allowed to continue to offend after the Tory party allegedly paid for the victim to receive support, but did not investigate. Labour and the Liberal Democrats have been called for an investigation about how it handled the accusations. In other news, university students are struggling to keep up with the ever-growing costs of food, accommodation, and even more. The National Student Money Survey found that since their last survey in 2022, monthly living costs have increased by 17%, with London being the most expensive region, with students on average spending £1,211 on a monthly basis. Students are having to get part-time jobs, access grants and funding, or simply just utilise their overdraft in order to get through the tough times. The most affected are those who are from low-income backgrounds, international students, and those who are depended upon. I spoke to Teresa, an international student studying at Queen Mary University. She had this to say.
Cost of living crisis has greatly affected me and many other students I know. At the end of the day, this impacts almost every aspect of our lives. When what is basic for someone to live becomes more expensive, like the noticeable rise in food prices, everything else becomes a luxury. Leisure time is the most expensive it's ever been, and recreational activities are really inaccessible. I know a lot of people who have had to give up hobbies and practicing sports. Finding a place to live in London, it's almost impossible for a student. Even going far away from study and work spaces and commuting is unviable because London transport has risen so much in price. It's also impossible to travel and make trips, not only for recreational and ludic activities, but also for international students that travel to go see their families. Is truly, really impossible to pay for everything to live, have a social life, and also go home and see their families. Cost of living crisis has greatly affected me.
As a result of money worries, it's contributing towards poor mental health, students even having thoughts about dropping out. At the start of the year, the government announced an additional £15 million in funding to enable universities to help students. However, it is evident that this is not enough. British basketball is growing in London and across the UK. However, progress is yet to be made. The Black Prince Trust is a non-profit organisation based in Lambeth managing a 2.5-acre sports hub with football, boxing and basketball courts. They work closely with organisations such as the London Basketball Association and the London Lions to improve the health and well-being of the community. Diana Voynova, the Programmes and Partnerships Manager of the Trust, said, "Basketball has grown massively in London, and it's beautiful to see how far we have come. But the most important message is that we don't stop now. We have a lot of different sessions that tailor and target every kind of group. There is a lot going on, but there is so much more that we can do." Despite an estimated 1.3 million regular players in the UK, there seems to be a lot of potential for promotion of the sport in London. And finally, the Ill Pie is holding live music concerts in a bid to preserve UK rhythm and blues. The club, located at the Cabbage Patch in Twickenham, is hosting new young talent alongside tribute acts and legends from the 1960s. Founders Gina Way, Warren Walters and guitarist Tom Nolan formed the club in the year 2000 in homage to Eel Pie Island to preserve the heritage of UK rhythm and blues. Upcoming bands this month include the Dave Thomas Band, the Thomas Heffel Band and Supernatural, a tribute to Peter Green. You are able to find dates and tickets on their website, www.eelpieclub.com. That's the latest. Your next update will be at 4:30 p.m.
Good afternoon. This is your 4:30 update from the Londoners newsroom. I'm Daniel Mulhern. The number of people killed in Gaza has surpassed 10,000 after a night of intense Israeli airstrikes, which killed roughly 200 people. Hamas said a Gaza Holocaust is happening and have called on the UN to inspect hospitals. Israel have claimed that Hamas are using hospitals as military positions. The Hamas-controlled health authorities in Gaza said more than 9,000 people have died in the past 4 weeks, more than a third of them being children. In other news, Rishi Sunak has deemed rape allegations against a Conservative MP very serious. The Labour and Lib Dems have called for an investigation by the party into how it handled the accusations. This comes after reports that former Tory party chairman Sir Jake Berry made police aware of the claims after leaving his post last year. Conservative MP Caroline Noakes described the case as horrific. 2023 has been the worst year for business closures in 14 years. The last 6 months have seen more quarterly insolvencies than any other year since 2009. According to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the economy is still stuck between weak growth and high inflation. I spoke to the CFO of post-production company The Mill about the effect the economy has had on local businesses and people around London.
Well, particularly local businesses are going to be struggling because people have less disposable income, and by that I mean, because they're spending more on heating, spending more on food, spending more on the basics. They can't afford to go out locally and support businesses by going to restaurants or buying, as I said, luxury items. So it's having an effect, and local businesses are also having to pay their staff more. So they're struggling as well to even run the businesses and keep operations running because it's so costly for them. So they've got higher costs, but they've probably got less income coming in because there's less disposable income. Obviously, the cost of living, everything's going up, whether it's eating, whether it's food, whether it's just trying to go out. Everything's gone up and it's very expensive. So people probably have to budget a bit better, a bit smarter, not spend on luxury items. And until such a time when interest rates start coming down again, then people will just have to be very they have to manage their cash very harsh, which is difficult because people want to go out, they want to buy things, and they want to support their families, but it's really tough at the minute.
A female Met police officer has denied sexually assaulting a woman in South London. 45-year-old Sergeant Rachel Bright is accused of touching a woman without her consent while off duty in Wandsworth, South London in December 2022. She appeared at Kingston Crown Court today and pled not guilty to one count of sexual assault. Miss Bright's trial date has been set for the 30th of September 2024. 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested after a painting in the National Gallery was damaged. The young protesters reportedly smashed the protective glass on the painting. Just Stop Oil named the pair as Hanan and Harrison and said safety hammers were used to smash the glass. Just Stop Oil responded to the arrests, saying, "New oil and gas will kill millions. If we love art, if we love life, if we love our families, we must just stop oil." The FA have announced England's friendlies to prepare for the upcoming European Championships. Gareth Southgate's team will host Brazil and Belgium at Wembley next March. Southgate said, "I'm happy to have 2 strong matches in March as we build towards the Euro finals." He said, "It is important we take every opportunity to test ourselves against top opposition." And finally, a Cambridge cat missing since March has been found in London. The cat travelled over 60 miles and his owner has nearly given up hope on their pet, Starkey's return. The black cat was lucky as he was cared for by office workers in London. Last month, Starkey's owner, Ashley Archer, was amazed when a London-based charity, the Celia Hammond Animal Trust, got in touch to say her cat had been brought in. Miss Archer stressed that the importance of having pets microchipped, as without that, her family would not have been reunited with Starkey. That's your latest. Your next update is at 4:45.
Hello, this is your 4:45 update from the Londoners newsroom. I'm Cymbeline Young. One of the heaviest nights of Israeli bombing is reported to have occurred over Gaza last night. The Hamas-run health ministry say over 10,000 people have been killed since the war began just under a month ago. Israel's chief military spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, said today there is a Gaza North and a Gaza South, confirming that the territory had been split in half by Israeli military. All major UN agencies have come together in a rare joint statement calling for a humanitarian ceasefire, saying that enough is enough. However, there are no signs of an agreement to a ceasefire, as it has been reported donkeys are being used within the devastation to maneuver dead bodies from the rubble due to the suspension of all communications with emergency services. In London, Met Police estimate there were 30,000 protesters calling for an end to the Israeli attacks in Gaza on Saturday as they brought traffic to a temporary standstill on Oxford Street. 29 people were arrested for offences including inciting racial hatred. Pro-Palestinian protests have been held in London and other cities globally each Saturday since the war began last month. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has stated the allegations made that an MP within the Conservative Party has committed multiple rapes is very serious. This statement followed a report made to the police by former party chairman Sir Jake Berry. Sir Jake told the police the party's failure to respond to the claims allowed the alleged perpetrator to continue to offend. Mr. Sunak said the Conservative Party had robust independent complaint procedures in place. The Labour Party and the Lib Dems have called for an investigation by the party into how it handled the accusations. The famous Rockaby Venus painting housed in the National Gallery in London has been targeted by two Just Stop Oil protesters. Just Stop Oil named the pair 22-year-old Hanan and 20-year-old Harrison, stating they used safety hammers to smash the painting's protective glass. The vandalised piece of art was created in the 1600s and previously slashed by suffragette Mary Richardson in 1914. The Met Police have arrested the two activists on suspicion of causing criminal damage. As the cost of living crisis continues in England, a new study has found that the last 3 months has seen the highest number of business insolvencies since 2009 in England and Wales. The study made by the Insolvency Service, an agency within the Department of Work and Pensions, saw the figures increase by 10% compared to last year's. I spoke with Matthew Hugill, a local tattoo shop manager in Twickenham, who described the effect the cost of living crisis has had on businesses.
Everything's a factor of it. I mean, Twickenham now is a nightmare because you've got ULEZ gone up, which everyone knows is an absolute joke. It's obviously affected Twickenham. You've got a thing called Twickenham bids. You've got the parking, which is a massive issue. People cancelling, not turning up. Inks, everything has all just jumped right up in price. I know there's a coffee shop whose electricity bill was, if I remember right, it was about £6,000 a quarter. So when you've got stuff like that going on, and then again you've got your business rates, you've then got this Twickenham bid thing, you've got the ULEZ, everything like that, like it all plays a part. I just feel like the council and the government are the ones forcing it because they're not doing anything to try and help. No one's ever got enough. You've got social media, everyone thinks everyone's balling when they're not. A full sense of security now. And if you go back, I can't speak for your parents, but my parents were grafters. They had a crappy car. We had closed out second-hand shops. My mum had 2 jobs, my dad had 1 job. People aren't working like that anymore, so they're not going to have as much. And I think we are living a lot more beyond that means compared to people were years back. But most tattooists we're grafters, so we get on with it. Even during COVID, when we had no real help, we do what we got to do, sell artwork, draw on other things. It's not just people we draw on. For myself, I've been tattooing 23 years. When I first got into tattooing, you couldn't rely on tattooing as a main income. Whereas now you can. So I'm used to having to have a second, third, maybe even a fourth job to get me through. So if I've got to go back to that, I'll go back to that.
The government are due to pay £300 to those eligible by the 19th of November as part of the cost of living payment benefit. Now to sport. The UK's first and only gay competitive men's basketball club is due to host London's first queer basketball tournament for over a decade in 2024. The London Knights, who train weekly at the Black Prince Community Trust in Lambeth, will welcome up to 15 teams from across Europe. The tournament is due to take place in the last week of July in 2024 and will serve as a trial run for larger competitions to coincide with the club's 25th founding anniversary in 2025. And finally, Rhythm and Blues is making a comeback as the well-known Eel Pile Club in Twickenham announces its plans to hold live music concerts in a bid to restore UK rhythm and blues. The club will be hosting new and young talent as well as tribute acts and legends from the 1960s. Founders Gina Way, Warren Walters, and guitarist Tom Nolan formed the club in 2000. They said, "We're doing events and gigs every 2 weeks, so we have a lot of people to choose from." Upcoming bands this month include the Dave Thomas Band, the Thomas Heppel Band, and Supernatural, a tribute to Peter Green. That's all for now. Your next update is at 5 o'clock. I'm Cymbeline Young.
This is your 5 o'clock news update from the Londoners newsroom. I'm Ollie Loveland-Jones. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza has said 10,000 people have now died since Israel retaliated against a Hamas attack early last month. The figures come after a night of Israeli strikes, with the Israeli Defense Forces saying they have hit hundreds of Hamas targets. It also comes amid increasing questions about Israel's tactics, with some accusing them of engaging in a collective punishment against civilians in the Gaza Strip. The Hamas-run death toll has been questioned by some, including US President Joe Biden, though others point out they have a reputation for being trusted historically, with the World Health Organization saying they see the figures as reliable. The latest development comes soon after US Secretary of State Antony Blinken ended his tour of the Middle East, telling reporters the diplomatic talks held covered what could be done to reach lasting peace. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has described rape allegations against a Conservative MP as very serious, amid claims a former chairman expressed concerns about alleged offending being committed by an unnamed MP. Jake Berry, who was chairman under former Prime Minister Liz Truss, is said to have written to the police expressing concern over what has been described as multiple allegations against the MP. The revelation comes weeks after Tory MP Crispin Blunt was arrested on suspicion of rape, while MP Peter Bone was found to have bullied and sexually harassed a member of his staff. Both have had the Tory whip removed, with Peter Bone facing a recall petition in his constituency. More than 16 million people across Britain have missed payments on key household bills this year, according to newly released figures. The Money and Pensions Service, backed by the government, says that 30% of British adults have fallen behind on at least one payment in 2023. 2 million of them missed payments for the first time, with the news coming amid high inflation and high energy bills. Jamie Hilton, director of local charity Film Good Neighbours, spoke about the general impact the cost of living is having on people.
States that we work on are top 10% most income deprived estates in the whole of England. So we've got quite acute deprivation there already. On top of that, still recovering from the pandemic, which, I strongly think we all are. And also the cost of living crisis. We've got quite a lot going on. So the big issue is folk not being able to afford to heat their homes because of the massive increases in energy bills. And that kind of has knock-on effects that kind of impact our programs in the sense that we've had to expand what we deliver at the community centre to deliver a social club 6 days a week, which was quite an expansion on our programs over the last year. So kind of introducing new social clubs, introducing drop-ins, but also doing more of what we were already doing because, if folk can't heat their homes, they need to be out and about. And so there has been funding out there from some funders for what they call warm spaces. So we're officially a warm space. So folk can come to us and enjoy social club activity. But, in reality, that engagement in part is trying to give them a warm place to be as well. Being cold and not being able to heat your home is uncomfortable and in turn impacts people's mental health. But you also have that feeling of failure kind of associated with that. If you can't heat your home and you're struggling to, enjoy a nice meal and everything's kind of seeming like you're counting the pennies, then I think that's very tough to take. I was speaking to the CEO of the local food bank to us just last week, and he was saying how the demand for their services has doubled over the last year. So quite intense.
Just Stop Oil activists have targeted a National Gallery painting that was once attacked by a suffragette activist. The activists were arrested after smashing the glass of the Rock by Venus painting. The painting was smashed by suffragette Mary Richardson in 1914. Just Stop Oil said the two students used safety hammers to smash the glass covering the artwork. In sport, the British Basketball Associations have said they are proud of the progress they have made in London and across Britain, but admit there is still progress to be made. The Black Prince Trust, a non-profit organisation based in Lambeth, worked with organisations including the London Basketball Association and the London Lions to help improve the health and well-being of the basketball community. The chairman of the British Basketball League, Aaron Radin, recognised the need for a more accessible market within the sport for those who have demonstrated an interest in playing. And finally, in some lighter news, Rare Roman Mausoleum and Mosaics are to receive a permanent home in Southwark. The items were discovered near London Bridge and have been set in motion, according to the local property developer Landsec. Landsec and TfL's commercial property, Places for London, have partnered to create a new space to display the artefacts permanently, on top of holding various archaeological events for the Southwark community. That's all for now. Your next update will be at 5:15.
Good afternoon. It's 5:15 p.m. I'm Libby Jennings, and here is your latest Londoners news. 10,022 people have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war, according to Hamas-run Health Ministry, with 200 people being killed by Israel's military overnight. The Israeli military have said they have occupied a Hamas outpost and have now divided the strip into two. The Rafah border connects Egypt and the Gaza Strip has now reopened today to allow British nationals and other foreign nationals and the badly injured a chance to leave the conflicted area. Hundreds have already crossed, but many more remain stuck. Heads of UN agencies have issued a joint statement which issues for a humanitarian ceasefire. While Labour leader Keir Starmer has attempted to downplay party disagreements over decisions to ceasefire, London Mayor Sadiq Khan and other prominent figures have overstepped the party line to call for it. In cost of living news, over 16 million Britons have missed important household bills this year, with 2 million of them doing so for the first time, according to the Money and Pension Service. Credit card payments were the most unpaid, followed by utilities, council tax, and bank overdrafts. I spoke to Ellie Wormwood, an advice centre coordinator and national lead practitioner at Oasis Hub Waterloo, about how people and Waterloo Food Bank have been affected by the crisis.
In health crisis, in housing crisis, in mental health and well-being, the need for the food bank is higher than ever, really. So the cost of living funds allocated by Lambeth Council, we were very grateful to receive some funding from them. A lot of support from the Trussell Trust to end the need for food banks within the next sort of 20 years, that we might see the end, but it doesn't come without an incredible amount of work, advocacy, campaigning. A really upsetting statistic is that there are more food banks in the UK than there are McDonald's, about 1,000 more. There are particular groups that have been more affected. So these are people who were on the margin or who were already in crisis. Because when you look at the figure of the interest rates, you think, oh, well, 5%, that's not unreasonable mathematically. But then when you reduce that down to somebody's life, you're talking about an increase on all of their basic essentials. We have had to respond to the increase in need by making our service more efficient, more streamlined, as well as having to do that with our community centre. That really makes a difference to people, is breaking down that stigma around asking for help, asking for support. At the moment is really struggling for donation. We are having to buy food in unprecedented quantities. The Trussell Trust and Joseph Rowntree Foundation are running a campaign called Guarantee the Essentials, where we're trying to campaign with the central government to raise the amount of universal credit quite significantly.
This comes out after UK food prices fell for the first time in 2 years, while the annual rate of inflation has sat at 6.7% since August. In other news, an ex-Met police officer, Michael Chadwell, has been found guilty of sending racist messages. The court saw that Chadwell had shared a message in a WhatsApp group in September 2022 that illustrated a picture of different coloured parrots. The text questioned why people value the diversity in animals but not in humans. The message under the image made a joke about bike theft, to which Chadwell reacted by saying, "Oops, hope not too woke." 5 other officers have also pleaded guilty to sending racist messages in a chat and were all charged under the Communications Act 2003. Furthermore, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has described the Tory rape allegations as very serious and urges anyone with evidence to go to the police. Reports from former Tory chairman Sir Jake Berry last year made the police aware of these claims, as well as noting that the failure of action from the members allowed the alleged perpetrator to continue. Other parties have called for an investigation on how the accusations were handled, while Sunak stated that the Conservative Party had robust complaint procedures in place. 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested by Met Police after damaging a National Gallery painting. According to the Met, the protesters used hammers to smash the painting from the 17th century, which was also vandalised by a suffragette in 1914. Within 15 minutes of the arrest, 100 other protesters were arrested after slow marching in Whitehall. Over in sport, the British Basketball Association is happy about their growth, but knows they need to improve more. The Black Prince Trust, a non-profit in Lambeth, collaborates with groups like the London Lions to improve the health of the basketball community, while the CEO of the British Basketball Leagues, Aaron Ridden, mentioned that they are rebranding to level up their product. And finally, Eel Pie Club at the Cabbage Patch in Twickenham is holding a live music concert to preserve UK rhythm and blues music to honour Eel Pie Island's history. The Eel Pie Club are hosting frequent events with lots of bands which will compete to perform, with the 2023 Independent Blues winner Dave Thomas also set to perform.
That was your Londoners News. Thank you for listening.